All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are tackling the Instagram Stories paradox. It's one of those classic questions that really peels back the curtain on the hidden logic behind one of the biggest features in the world. So, here's the question. If Instagram Stories just poof, disappeared tomorrow, what single metric would drop first? And look, this isn't just some abstract interview question. No, this gets right to the very heart of how these massive billion-dollar products are actually built and measured. It's all about connecting how we think and act as users directly to the numbers that drive the business. I mean, think about it. We're talking about a feature with over 500 million daily users. That's not just a feature, it's practically its own social network inside an app. So getting this question right, it's all about understanding the deep psychological hook that keeps people like you and me coming back day after day after day. So what's your gut telling you? Maybe time spent would drop? Or maybe daily users? Yeah, those are pretty good guesses, for sure. But to really answer this like a senior product manager, someone who builds these things, we have to move past our gut feelings. We need a solid framework. Okay, let's get into it. This is the framework that's going to separate a pretty good answer from an absolutely great one. It's a really simple, logical, three-step process. First, we're going to set the strategic context, like where is Instagram as a business? Second, we'll dig into user behavior, the psychology of it all. And finally, we'll connect all of that behavior back to the cold hard data, the metrics. All right, first up, strategy. And this is probably the most important thing to get right off the bat. Instagram isn't some scrappy startup trying to find its first million users anymore. It is a mature product. And that one fact, it changes absolutely everything about what they're trying to achieve. And here's the key distinction, right? For a mature product like this, the whole game shifts from growth to engagement. It's not about acquiring new users anymore. It's all about keeping the hundreds of millions of users they already have happy. So happy that they stick around. That's what drives retention, and you guessed it, that's what makes them punny. Okay, on to step 2, user behavior. This is where it gets really interesting. We're going to look at how Stories has literally conditioned us, all of us, to use the app in a very specific way. It's created this powerful, almost unconscious habit. Yeah, it's all built around this super powerful concept from psychology called the habit loop. And it's actually pretty simple. It's a 3-part process. There's a cue or a trigger, then a routine or an action, and finally a reward. Seriously, this little loop is like the invisible engine running behind almost every single habit you have. So for Instagram Stories, what does that look like? Well, the trigger, or the cue, is usually just a tiny moment of boredom. You're waiting in line for coffee or waiting for the bus. The action? It's completely effortless. You just open Instagram and instinctively tap on that very first story circle. And the reward? Bam! An instant hit of new, easy-to-digest content. It's a little content snack. And that loop reinforces itself over and over, making you open the app more and more frequently without even thinking about it. And here's the kicker. Getting rid of Stories isn't just like removing some random button. No way. It's like taking a sledgehammer to the most powerful, high-frequency habit loop in the entire product. All of a sudden, that I've got 30 seconds of downtime trigger, it has nowhere to go. The routine is broken. Okay, so now for step 3. We've got the strategy, we've got the user psychology. Now let's connect that broken habit to the cold, hard numbers. And to do that, we're going to use something called a metric tree to pinpoint the answer. You see, most big, mature apps, like Instagram, have what they call a North Star metric. It's the one single metric that guides their entire strategy. And for Instagram, it's almost certainly something like total time spent on the platform. It's the ultimate measure of success. Are people finding value here? Are we doing a good job? But here's the thing. A North Star metric isn't just a standalone number. It's actually an equation. In this case, total time spent is made up of 3 key ingredients. How many people use the app each day, times how often they open it, times how long they stay each time they open it. So let's just break that down, one piece at a time. First, daily active users, or DAU. Would people just delete the app on day 1? Nah, that's pretty unlikely. So that metric is going to be slow to change. Okay, what about average time per session? Will people spend less time each time they open the app? Yeah, probably, but they'll still scroll the main feed. So that will drop, but it's not the first thing to fall. But what about sessions per daily user? The number of times you open the app every single day? Absolutely. Bingo, we found it. That main trigger for all those little check-ins is just gone. That is the metric that gets hit first, and it gets hit the hardest. And there it is. That's our answer. The very first metric to fall, the one that will see the most immediate and dramatic drop, is session frequency, or as the pros call it, sessions per DAO. Why? Because that whole habit loop we talked about, the one driving all those quick little check-ins, has been completely dismantled. But hold on, a really great analysis doesn't just stop at the first answer. A senior PM is always thinking about the second-order effects. So what are the damaging ripple effects that would spread out from this one metric dropping? This is where we have to talk about something called counter metrics, or sometimes they're called guardrail metrics. They're super important because they help you see the negative side effects of a change. They basically make sure you're not optimizing for one thing so hard that you accidentally break something else. You don't want to win the battle just to lose the war. See, a drop in how often people open the app, that's never just one number changing. It's a chain reaction. Fewer sessions means fewer chances to show ads, which means less money for Instagram. It also means creators get less engagement on their content, which is a huge problem. And over the long term, all of this just eats away at user retention, the very thing a mature product needs to survive. And this table here really lays out the dangerous trade-offs perfectly. I mean, sure, Instagram could just try to force everyone back to the main feed, but look at what would happen. You'd see creators start to leave, and they're the lifeblood of the whole platform. You'd lose a ton of ad impressions. And maybe worst of all, you'd weaken that sense of casual community that makes Instagram feel authentic and personal, turning it into just another passive feed you scroll through. This quote from Susanna Bate just hits the nail on the head. This whole exercise shows us that understanding the strategic why behind a feature like Stories is every bit as important as measuring the what of its performance. Stories isn't just another way to post content. It's a core strategic pillar that props up engagement, community, and their business model. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Honestly, the specific answer, session frequency, isn't nearly as important as the process we use to get there. That framework, right? Moving from the big picture strategy down to user habits and then connecting it to specific metrics, that's the real skill they're testing for. And that leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. Try this framework out yourself. Pick your favorite feature in an app you use every single day, and just ask yourself, if this disappeared tomorrow, what would be the very first metric to fall? And what would the ripple effects be? It's a really cool way to start seeing the invisible logic that powers the products we use and love.